Alright, welcome to part 2 of our Procedural Planet series. Today we're going to be working on elevation for our terrain. We're going to fix our UVs real quick and maybe get to biomes, but probably not. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, in our project we've got our blueprint planet and we have our terrain basic, which we threw on here. You just drag it onto there. I'm going to start by going into blueprint planet. We're going to clean this up a little bit. So we have a pen sphere box, which is what our shape is. I think in the last one we were using like box projection, but this already has UVs, and if you use mesh solidify, it will get rid of UVs. So instead we're going to use tessellation, which honestly kind of sucks and it's been deprecated in a lot of Unreal Engine, but they still have it here for some reason. So you can just plug in tessellation and then set the level to whatever you want, like 6 or 8. Don't go too high, it'll fry your computer. If you do want to use mesh solidify, just drag this out and do a box project for UV, and this will reproject UVs in box form around your sphere cube. So I can give you a look at this, make sure that that actually works. If the radius is 1000, I don't know if box is going, let's just go to 1100 and just see if that works. Because the radius is half the distance across. I'm not sure if the box is also a half distance or if it's the whole width. Let's see. Okay, that works. So what you will notice though are the UVs are slightly messed up, and also they're kind of like swapped. I'll show you the difference if we don't use mesh solidify. We just use the tessellation on a sphere cube. Boom. See, that's clean. So maybe you do want to use tessellation. If you do use this method, just know that like the UVs might not work as good, and for noise it won't matter because our noise will be based in world space. Alright, so you're going to want to create a terrain material if you haven't already. Call it M terrain or planet surface, whatever you want. Put it on your planet, so select it in there. You'll notice already that there's these seams if you have a texture, and that's because the heights are different on those seams. So, and if you want to get rid of that, you'd have to make it line up, but we're not going to use the texture, we're actually going to use noise. So what do you need to get started? At least have this vertex normal and these little multiply things for our world position offset. That's what's going to give us the height on the surface. But we're going to start with a world position node, and this is what we're going to use, and we're going to use our noise. So our first noise, simplex noise is what we want. We're going to plug that into there. There's a lot of settings that we're going to look at soon, but first plug that in. If you notice, it's really fine, really sharp or whatever. Too sharp. So if you click noise, you can tell there's the different versions. We're going to use simplex. Levels 6, that's fine. What we want to mess with is scale. So if you multiply 10, it's even bigger, but if you go 0.1, there we go. So we're going to create a leave that at 1 for now, and we're going to create a variable, or a scalar parameter. So press S, click. We're going to call this our noise scale, and we want to multiply. Hold M and drag that. Let's get rid of text coordinate, we don't need it. Make this, it's kind of inverted like for what we want right now. So that's our initial noise. You can change this to like 2 if you want to see a difference. More levels will be like more detail because it kind of tiers on itself, but we're gonna add more detail anyways. So that's kind of our base noise. We're gonna add a second level, and we're gonna add them together. So if we just copy and paste this, actually while we're here, you also see output min and output max. If you change this to -10 and this to 10, gets way more chunky, but if we remap it, so if you go remap value normalize or range and plug that result, and we know that our input was 10 and our minimum and our max was positive 10, so we can plug that into low and high, and we'll get something like that. So that's a little different. Let's just clamp this to make sure that it's between 0 and 1. Okay, I think it already was. So that is a little different than, say, just going with our noise by itself. And if our noise is just -1 to 1, or if our noise is 0 to 1. So that remapped is more like going 0 to 1, if that makes sense. So those are just some tools we can use later on. For now, we'll just keep it at default settings, which is -1 to 1. That's why you get these black spots, because the black is 0, and going to -1 goes below that. And yeah. So anyway, I'm supposed to be hurrying, but I always do this. And it's been a while. We got our second noise. We'll plug position. We'll do the same multiply thing. We want a second multiply, actually. We're going to multiply by a different value. So we're going to create another parameter. We're going to call it noise detail scale. And plug that into here. This, for now, we're going to shrink it even to make it even bigger, to be 0.5, 0.25, 0.025. Okay, there's our big noise. Oh, by the way, when we're doing this, it might not look the same. See, it's going to look big on here, but it's going to be small on there. So we're going to actually want to do something real quick to make that easier to work with. Just set this to 1 for now. Plug that into position. And then what we want to do is add these noises, but first let's do a little preview. So that's the small scale. Let's go 0.5, 0.2, 0.1. It's probably pretty good for now, because considering that our other noise looks like this. And if we add these, we get that. A little nicer, a little chunkier, more refined. For the big noise, we can actually turn down the level to like 4. You can just mess with that if you want. Okay, and so because we made parameters, I'll show you how useful that is. We're gonna come into here and we're gonna right click our terrain basic, and we want to create a material instance, and we're going to drag that onto our planet. So now the material instance is a material on our planet, and when you click this, because we have our variables or our parameters, we can click this and like modify this like that, and that will give us updates in real time. And 0.002 will give us big chunks. It's weird that this doesn't have detail scale as a parameter, so hit save. Because sometimes if it doesn't save, it doesn't update. There's our detail. And you can tell this looks different here versus that. So now we're going to change detail scale to like 0.02, 0.002. That's too small. 5. Okay. So these are small numbers. We might want to do like a planetary scale multiplier to get these to be more round whole numbers, but for now it doesn't really matter. So here's our planet elevation baseline surface. We might want to add more noise because it's just kind of white in the center. We kind of want more variation. So if we plug this back, sorry, that's unplugged. All right, looking at this, you can tell that we still get these weird dark sections And that is because if you look at our noises, we have input -1 to 1, and this one's also -1 to 1. So if you add that, you get -2 to 2, which was why this is so starkly contrasty. So if we take our remap range that we had earlier, get rid of this clamp, and we just shift this to here, unplug that, and we can take this from -2 to 2, and that's just, again, adding these output mins and maxes, and then we plug that back into result. We should, all right, that's a little weird looking, but again, it doesn't always look the same on our planet. Plug that into our vertex offset. These are just multiplying each other. I think I switched these off screen, but it's the same thing. Switch this to 10 so it's not so extreme for now, unless you're using a bigger circle. Yeah, okay, and so that's our new noise. You can tell it looks nice and cloudy. But it's not good enough for terrain, obviously, because, like, where's the water gonna be? So now we're gonna add a third noise that we're gonna use to subtract out, and that'll kind of give us our water effect. Also, let's make this a parameter. So right click, convert to parameter. We're gonna go, I don't know, what do you call, like, elevation multiplier? Elevation mult. That just multiplies our vertex normal along the normals for the world position offset. Okay. Let's clean that up a bit. Create some space. And now we want a new noise, like the song. And we might as well use absolute world position. The thing with absolute world position is that if you move this around, it travels with it, so that might cause problems later on, but you can just swap that out with like an actual vector for seeds. But for now, it works. Okay. For this one, let's just change this down to 4. And we want a scale mult. Let's multiply again. Create another parameter, maybe call this like continent size or something. Multiply that. Right click this. If you hit start previewing node, oh, this is at 0. Let's just go 1, 0.001. There we go. So that will give us these chunks. Again, it's going to look different on our thing. And if we go to subtract, we probably want to subtract after here. What's our output? -1 to 1. Okay, we'll try that. Save. And we need to stop previewing really quickly. Ew, what the hell? That looks weird. But let's check how it looks on our planet. Okay. So now you can tell we've got more continents looking things. Let's maybe do turn levels up to 6. And maybe put this to 0. Hit save. It's not terrible. It's still a little like, I don't know what the word for it is, but what are we looking for now? Oh yeah, we can modify our material instance so we can see if we turn this up to 25. Is that working? Looks like it is, kind of, except for those black spots look like they're being multiplied too, doesn't it? Did we plug it? No, we didn't. We didn't do this. Okay. Can you guys see that? save. Much better, I think. Maybe, no, maybe. Crank it up to 50. Yeah, so that, well, should be working. We might want to do a clamp just to be sure. Save that. Oh yeah, now we're getting some details. Still, that's kind of sketchy, but I think if you were to apply material or update the normals, it would look pretty good. So that's looking pretty interesting. It's not super great, but for just 2 noises, that's pretty good. I think we're going to add one more thing before the next video, and that's going to be a POW, which will allow us to kind of ramp up or ramp down things. So we get the power. Alright, now I got some water in me, which I need more water. We'll use our power node here, we'll copy and paste, and we'll do one down here. Actually, we probably want it over here. That's my guess. We're going to start with an exponent of 1, so it doesn't change anything. And we're going to create a new parameter for that. You can just hit S. And we're going to call this power exponent. I don't know, what would you call this? Just exponent. I'm going to look up a better name. Redistribution. I don't like that either. Let's just call it power. Power slope. Power molt. Will you understand what I mean if I say power molt? An exponent. Make it 1. Hit save. Okay, now we got our material instance. If we go into power molt, we hit 2. Oh yeah. So this will be sensitive, 1.5, 1.2. So what this does is it's going to make everything that's like more extreme if you want. So if you go 0.1, it'll flatten it out, but if you want it to be spikier, you can do that, and then you can also use your elevation molt. You can go like that and you get some real crazy details in there. So that's probably a good place to stop for this video because I'm trying to keep these shorter because I've been talking too much. Alright, so I think we're going to wrap up here. We went over the elevation, 2 different noise stacking with 1 subtracting to give us a nice continents look. We've got some details and changes in elevation, like as I said. We added levels of noise. We used our power to do redistribution. When we created a nice material instance that gives you all these little editing options so you can modify them. In the next one, we're going to go over biomes and how to get different terrain colors, and we're going to do some custom HLSL nodes, which is a high-level shading language, and we're going to do that in our material, and I'll probably record that soon. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and leave a like or comment, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.